Are you ready to say goodbye to the constant ups and downs of the artist income roller coaster? Whether you're a full-time artist who wants to increase and stabilize your income, a part-time musician who wants to go full-time, or a hobbyist who needs to fund your passion projects, this podcast will equip you with the tools, resources, and inspiration to make it happen. My name is Bree Noble. I'm a musician, best-selling author, and educator whose mission is to help musicians like you to increase the income you're already making and tap into new income streams so you can create a more diverse, stable, reliable income from music and finally ditch the starving artist mentality. Now let's dive into the Profitable Musician Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Bree Noble. I am excited to be here with my friend, Honey Larochelle from the Sacred Artistry Club. And gosh, Honey and I, we actually are running out of time because we talked too much beforehand. We just love to talk about music industry stuff and how to help artists. So I want to jump right into it, but I want to start out, actually, she's on tour right now. And she's in a show that's traveling. She's out on the weekends and she has to make sure she make her sound check. So we are talking with a real working musician here. So I want to jump into your journey, Honey. Let us know, how did you get into music? How did you start performing, singing backup with some really well-known artists, all of that stuff? And then what made you decide to create the Sacred Artistry Club?
Oh man. Okay.
That's a lot, right?
In the ground running, loaded questions. Here we go. All right. Okay. So if we zoom all the way out and we go to the very beginning, my mom is a singer. My mom toured with Little Richard, Marvin Gaye, Bon Jovi, Bryan Adams. And when I was young, she was a single mom. So she was on this can you hold my baby while I go on stage kind of tip, because she couldn't even really afford her babysitters. So it was I was in these clubs as an infant. I remember meeting Little Richard when I was 5 years old, and I cried because he scared me, because he said, "Hello, little girl," right in my face. And I was ah! So my mom provided me with this very musical upbringing. I was always in her rehearsals. She was in an a cappella quartet. So I was in there listening to them create these intricate harmonies as a child, and then we did a children's album together when I was 7. She had me in the studio with her and I was singing on most of the records. We also did a John Denver album. I did a lot of chorus work with her. So she just had me sort of with her because she couldn't afford a babysitter. That's really what it was. But that gave me priceless training. My ear is amazing. And so that has really served me going forward. Now we can fast forward to my years in New York City. When I first got there, I was I'm going to be a star. I immediately booked myself a show at the bitter end. I didn't have a band. I booked it for 30 days away. And then I posted an ad on Craigslist. And I said, new up-and-coming artist is auditioning band members. And I put some of my music up there. And I auditioned an 11-piece band. And then we rehearsed in my little tiny Brooklyn apartment. And I fed them spaghetti as payment for rehearsal. And we went and played this bitter end gig. And that was how I began my journey in New York. A year later, one of my best friends, Maya Azucena, who's an incredible artist, she calls. She's like, "Listen, the brand new heavies are auditioning background singers. They invited me, but it's not my dream to be a background singer. I have no interest in that, but I would love to refer you. Are you open?" And at the time, I thought that background singing was actually going to be my kickstart into being a superstar. At that time, that was where my mentality was. But what I have learned over the years is background singing, yes, it puts you in the room with the right people. Yes, I have now built relationships with a ton of celebrities. But actually, I feel for many years, I was seen and even introduced as a background singer. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I became a really well-known working musician.
Yeah, no, I had a Judith Hill on my show, and same thing. I asked her that. I was like, you could probably get gigs forever and ever as a background singer, but did you have to just give up all those lucrative gigs in order to ever break out? And she's like, yeah, I was never going to be my own artist if I just kept taking these gigs.
Yeah. Which is where I am now. I'm like in the middle of creating my newest and latest record. I'm just like, okay, it's been 5 years since I've done a Honey Larochelle album, because 5 years just go by because you're just working all the time. And I'm thankful for the work. And so I am in that kind of conversation. I believe I can create a both and scenario. Like, I don't feel like I have to give something up in order to get something. I believe it's possible to create a both and 100%. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean that it will be pain-free. But I love my job. I love the people that I work with. I consider them family, and they will help me, with my record. If I'm like, okay, I'm ready to produce my own stuff now, I know I have family who will be like, okay, honey gets to have a project and she deserves it too.
That's really, really cool. And it is nice to have that kind of support for sure, because they get it, especially if they're, musicians, background singers, like they get that we have this burning desire in us of like our own unique artistry that we need to get out there.
Yeah. My boss called me the other day, like right after our gig, we're all in the same hotel, and he rang my room and he was like, girl, you are bad. He was just like, there's only one Jill Scott, there's one Erykah Badu, and it's like, we got to create the Honey. She is not to be messed with. And he just like kind of gave me this beautiful, empowering call that he didn't need to do. But I know a lot of these bigger artists, especially in the jazz, soul, R&B world, will let people go. Marcus Miller, for instance, he let Louis Cato go. And it was like, great, you get to, go get you something else, boo, because you're not going to work here. But it was a gesture of love. Like a way to just say, I believe in you, and you can't continue to use me as a crutch.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I've seen that too with other, musicians that really get good at something else. Like maybe it's teaching or whatever. And what they really need to do is go out there and promote their own artistry. But it's hard because when you are in something that's making you a good living and you get a lot of affirmation from it because you're really good at it, it's really hard to jump into like the artist thing full time, but sometimes you need that push.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Now you live in Hollywood now. Did you move there from New York because of music?
Yeah. In 2010, I got signed to Macy Gray's record label. She moved me to LA. She put me in studios with everybody. And for 3 years, we were cutting records. We turned in like 89 songs. And after 3 years, we released one of those singles. And so, when you're an artist trying to put out another artist, there's so many other factors involved, and you're still being an artist. And she's a mother of 3. And, it wasn't an official label with a huge team. And so that's just how it went. But, she really made it possible for me to make my entrance into LA powerful. And I have relationships that are, super valuable still. And you asked how Sacred Artistry was born. And, from 2010 to 2020, I was touring with all kinds of people. I was with Roberta Flack for many years, Joss Stone. I even got to do Coachella with Lorde. I've had a really great time. And lots of other artists in between. But obviously when the pandemic hit, everybody got to face themselves in a new way and create a pivot. And for me, I fell into a very deep depression at the start of it when the rug was pulled and all the rest of my gigs for the year were suddenly dissolved and I had zero income. I had never prepared or imagined that I wouldn't have some income. So I didn't really have enough savings even. Like I just wasn't there. And I went through this identity crisis where I was like, if I'm not a singer, who am I? And if I am a singer, am I actually non-essential? Because I started hearing essential worker, this term I had never heard before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for calling so many of us non-essential.
Yeah, punks. Y'all got it all wrong, by the way.
And I think that's really what the pandemic taught us, that art is essential, in my opinion.
So important. Because like really, while I'm in my deep depression, what got me through? Music. And when I crawled out of that hole, I used Reiki. Reiki was a big tool for me to find my self-love practice again, to deepen my healing. But ultimately with Reiki, it's music. Music is what's fueling all of it. And I had this epiphany. Not only am I finally worthy, I'm sacred. And when you look at what the word sacred means, it means worthy of worship. It means extremely important, worthy of respect. And when I was in my depression, I felt for a second there, I'm nothing. I have no value. I can't save anybody's life. I'm just over here making music. Like, what is this? Because I was like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, and I'm not making anybody food. And those were the essential workers. So I knew in that moment, like, I know I'm not the only artist suffering with this mystery, like with this complete veil over our eyes, unsure of where we stand, where we belong. And that's how Sacred Artistry was born.
Yeah, I mean, we must have met in 2020.
I think so. I knew about you a lot sooner than that. I had been following you for some time. But I think in 2020, when I created Sacred Artistry, was when I had the courage to reach out and say, hello, this is what I'm doing. You
started doing summits in order to help artists around very particular subject matters. What was the first one you did?
The first one I did was just called the Art and Heart Singers Conference. And that was sort of me saying, welcome world, Art and Heart lives here now. And so here's Honey Larochelle, and she's hosting Art and Heart. And so it was really like, because it was my first summit, I was a little confused. It was like, we had sync, we had PR, we had production, how to produce at home.
Which, to be fair, is what my summits were like. Because mine were Profitable Musician Summit, right? It's all the ways you can make money. So it was a lot of things just like you did.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. In fact, I think that was one of my best summits, honestly, because I was so raw. I didn't have any expectations. There was that like scared excitement energy, or like, I stood for 14 hours in front of that ring light. I mean, I had the worst headache at the end. I was like, I did it. I went all the way. And adrenaline, I didn't even eat, it was just like adrenaline. But it was such a beautiful experience. And the people that I brought on were so incredible. And I do believe we helped a lot of people.
I think that's one thing that came out of the pandemic too, is that there were a lot of summits that happened. I was on a lot of them, and we did like a binge weekend of our previous summits too. And, just helping artists, like offering this free content of things that could really help them make money that weren't in the performing realm, which we couldn't do right then, right? Like our binge weekend was like, here's all the streams of income that came from our summits that have nothing to do with what you can't do right now, which is performing.
Right. Exactly.
And I think it really helped a lot. So I know you base your Sacred Artistry around 4 different pillars. So I'd love to have you talk about those a little bit.
Yeah. The 4 pillars of Sacred Artistry, all are equally important, but the first pillar is the self. So you get to master your relationship with yourself, how you speak to yourself. Actually, most of us don't even realize that the little voice in our head, which I call the ego, you can call it something, that little voice in your head, everybody has one. While I'm speaking, there's something in your head going, what is she talking about? Wait, is that little voice? What little voice? I don't think there's a little voice. That's just how it goes. And so we sort of start to tune in to that little voice, create a synergy. And when that little voice, when you look in the mirror and you go, ugh, you're so fat and ugly, which happens all the time to most humans, there's some, oh, I hate your nose. Or like, everybody's got some evil thing within us that speaks to us terribly in a way that is not nurturing, that is not sacred, that is not kind. And we have grown numb to it. We just accept it. We've learned how to live with that bully. And so we actually look at it and go, excuse you, for your opinion, I need you to sit down. You're still welcome here. Like, we're not going for ego death. We're just going for, you are welcome at the table, but you're not driving the train. You could sit down. You could be here with us, but you don't get to run your mouth right now. And it takes a while to build that muscle. And so we do a lot of self work. We do shadow work. We do ancestral healing. We do mirror work. We do a game called the Notice and Celebrate game, which is my favorite. And that's just really like noticing, just finally noticing when that voice comes up, and then celebrating that you noticed and creating new neural pathways in your brain. So the self pillar is really robust, really deep. Then we get into the second pillar, which is sell, because I believe we all get to be earning while we're learning. And I always use Madonna or Mary J. Blige as examples. Like when Madonna came out, she was super confident. She was super clear about her lane. She was edgy. She was causing ruckus, and she was polarizing, right? She really stood with who she was. But we all got to witness her get better over time, right? So she was out here selling it at the very beginning, whether or not it was polished or perfect. And so we want to kill the perfectionist within us and start making offers right away. Hey, I got this song. Do you like it? Hey, I got this course. Do you like it? Hey, I got this webinar. Do you like it? Hey, and like getting the feedback and then tweaking with the feedback, but getting paid to get better. So sell pillar is second. And inside the sell pillar, we go through all the ways you can sell, all the different ways you can get your brand story together, all the different types of offers you can create, how to figure out which offer works best for you, who you're really making offers for, etc. And then we get into the third pillar, which is the skill pillar, which is, like I said, we got to watch Madonna get better over time. So now that we're earning a little money, we're not operating from scarcity. We're not like doing anything just to get a buck, but we're actually confident in that, okay, I know that it's not perfect, but I am making offers. Now let me go ahead and start honing my skills. Now let's get a little better at the songwriting, at singing. Let's improve our skills at production or communication with producers. And then the fourth pillar is the surf. And the surf for me is, you know, when I'm out on tour, when I get home. So on tour, there's always like a day sheet. There's a tour manager who's like, hey, I need you in the lobby at this time. We have sound check at this time. There's like somebody creating an itinerary for me, and I feel needed. And then I get to go perform for a crowd of adoring fans. And then I get that high of all the applause, and then the afterward, and oh my God, you're so fantastic. Oh, thank you. Oh, can I get a picture? Oh, absolutely. And then you're beaming and you're smiling for hours. And there's this high that you get, right? Because you're receiving quite a bit. And then you come home. My experience is I come home, and most of the time my phone's not really ringing because people just expect that I'm gone anyway. And so it can feel really lonely. It could also feel lonely whilst I'm on the road after the gig and you come back to your empty, quiet hotel room. And so learning to nurture yourself in that time instead of feeling like I used to, which was like, nobody wants me, nobody's calling, I missed all the parties, everybody's having fun, they didn't invite me. And like, I would really feel like FOMO, I would really feel left out. And I wouldn't take much time to ever do a self-care ritual, do some yoga, take a bath, love on me, look in the mirror, talk to me. And so that rest and recover, or sleep more, that rest and recovery becomes equally mandatory. So in the surf pillar, we're learning to tap into our intuition and our guided intuition. So source is asking you to sit down and recover in this moment. And instead of fighting that and feeling resistance around it, you surrender. And then there's other moments when you're in the middle of a launch that source is asking you, girl, you better stay up all night and text 600 people with this link that you're, while you're launching, and sometimes you get to give yourself that push and you use the energy that's being offered and actually listen to it. So you're tuned in a way that's higher vibrational. You're no longer using your head, you're using your body, you're using your heart, and you're really just surrendering to whatever is being offered.
I love that. So I want to go back to the sell and skill, which so I totally get why sell comes first, because I've started doing this as well. It's like, we need to know what your offers are before we start building all the other things around them, because like you have to start with the end in mind.
Right.
And also I like to say, like, if you're in scarcity mode, it's going to be hard for anyone to say yes to your offers because they can feel your desperation. Right.
Totally.
So that makes a ton of sense to me. What I was wondering is, when do you know that you have enough skill to sell? Because yes, we can't like wait until we're perfect. I mean, I help people create courses and they're like tweaking and, and like taking an extra year to get it out there because it has to be perfect before I put it out there. And so I am a big fan of, like, 70% perfect is plenty. But sometimes, people don't have enough skill at all. Like, people have never performed in front of people. You can't expect to charge $300 for a performance if you've literally never performed in front of people. So how do you know when you're there?
Okay, so this is awesome. That's a great point. So if you've never performed at all, can you charge $300? Sure. Will you sell those tickets? Probably not. And that's the feedback, right? You could put an offer out going, come and see for the very first time the most amazing first time performance. And you could, circus it up. And if you create the offer in a compelling enough way, maybe a couple people will buy, maybe just your family will buy. And so I base it all on the feedback.
Mm.
So you put the offer out at $300, you sell 2 tickets to your family. What feedback are you getting? The world isn't really interested in this offer.
But so what if you do sell? What if you sell 20 tickets?
Exactly.
And then you're like, oh crap, I sold 20 tickets and I've never performed in front of people before. I'm going to suck. I'm going to be terrible. And you go into this like shame spiral and you're just like petrified.
Yes. And that's all fine. It's feedback. So if you sold 20 tickets, then it means that actually there's something about you, whether or not you've done it before, there's something about you that people are interested in.
Mm.
Right. And so if you can find your confidence, this is why we do the self pillar first.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, there's plenty of exercises. There's plenty of tools, because there's nobody, if you don't feel any fear, then you're going to suck too. Right. If you get on stage and you're just rolling your eyes like, hello, everybody, look at me.
Aren't you to be here? Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Then you're also going to suck. So it's wonderful to feel that fear. It can be transmuted into excitement. You can get up there and have the first couple of notes be really crap and shaky because you're so nervous. And then people will witness you open up. And that experience, right? If you're being authentic. I went to a show the other day. This girl was amazing. But let me tell you, the first couple of songs, I was like, oh God, what have we done here? Is this how we're spending our evening? That was really my thought, and she was so nervous. She had put so much into preparing this show. You could tell. And, it's like, is everything correct? Well, I was going to wear this other dress and that didn't work. So now I'm walking out in this other dress. I'm not that comfortable. Oh, there's a stool, but do I want to sit in it? She's in her head.
Yeah.
And after about 2 or 3 songs, she finally said, okay, guys, so listen, this is what's going on with me and my husband, and this is what's going on in my life, and this is what's going on with this tour. And this is where this song came from. And then that song, we were all like, it took her a while to warm up. Now, so it's possible to allow them to witness the journey. That's one way it can go. The other way is you can be so terrible that it's also incredibly entertaining.
No, I'm sure most artists don't want that to be their situation, but
listen, if that's the case, capitalize on that thing, baby. Get that money and live you get to love you no matter how the world receives you. You get to love you no matter what. Be confident. I remember there was this artist, God, I think his name was JJ Fish or something. And he put out some YouTube videos where he's singing so confidently into the camera. And what you hear sounds like, I mean, like, it's like, like there's no pitch, there's no tone, there's no real words. I mean, there's no enunciation. I mean, it's like, it is comical. It's so bad that it's comical. And he had millions and millions of followers and millions of views. And he loved himself. You could tell. He was not bothered that it was different. And so you get to choose what matters. You know, as much as you can love yourself, that's when others will love you. Because the truth is even if he's terrible and he got all the millions of followers, if people saw him in the street, they would want to know him. Right? They're not going to not want to know him. They're still intrigued because he found his own swag and he owned it 100%. So I'm more interested in somebody really being good with themselves.
Yeah, and it's such a hard thing to do. I was just talking to some of my students and they're just like, they're petrified about being on video. They're petrified about people thinking badly of them because they're promoting themselves. You know, most artists go through all of that, right? You're actually really lucky if you're the kind of artist that just doesn't care what the heck anyone else thinks.
Well, it's not even that you're lucky. It's that you have a chance. If you're worried about everybody else, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So the more often you can get out of, because really the society's programs are old. They get to be rewritten. And they've been being rewritten over and over by the ballsy artists that come out and rewrite.
Yeah.
You got to have a little Kanye within you.
Yeah. And when I say lucky, I mean, some people are born with that. Like some people are born with the, I don't give an F about anyone else. I know that this is me. But most people aren't. And we have to work at it. And we have to develop a tough skin and all that stuff.
Yeah, me too. Most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh, I've been a people pleaser. I've been the new kid in school my whole life. I went to 5 different high schools, 3 middle schools, 3 elementary schools. I mean, I really have been a chameleon in order to please. And I spent years and years going, please like me, look at me, I like me, look, I'm cool. Oh, I can do it just like you. Oh, you wear your clothes that way. Oh, you do your makeup like that. Oh, I can do this kind of makeup. Like, you know, it took me years until I realized that I myself am enough. I'm enough. And if it's not your bag, baby, you know what I mean? If you're not feeling it, then you're not for me. But there's 7 billion people. I'm for some of them, for sure.
That's right. Absolutely. And I love that you do this deep work in the self stage. I wanted to ask about the surf. Okay. I definitely agree. The self-care and all that stuff. But as somebody who is so deeply immersed in music all the other times, like when you're on tour and all that stuff.
I'm sorry, Bree, the housekeeping. Why? No, thank you.
It's the life of a touring artist. We got to tell the housekeeping to go away.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. What I was going to ask was, other than self-care, do you find it's important for you to have hobbies outside of music that you can do to just completely get yourself out of the music world because you're so immersed in it all the time?
No, for me, it's actually, but this is just me personally. I don't have time for many hobbies. And like a hobby might put me in like for instance, I've always dreamt about painting. And I love picking up a brush and putting it to a canvas or a page. And when I do that, I may get caught up in, well, now I want to get better at this because it's not very good. And then I might start spending more energy, like learning how to paint, which takes away from the probability of me completing my album. So what I definitely tune out. I'm a binge, like I'll binge watch a show or like just turn like into a vegetable for a day. And sometimes it's 3 days, I'll be honest. But for me, it's really important to tune out, like to take myself out of society. And so, yes, a hobby could fuel that, but I feel like it wouldn't give me the turn off of the brain that I need. You know, I need to just lay there and look at something and be entertained, or like I just need to not do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, I think it's walks, it's baths, it's, it's certain exercise routines or just like you said, just watching something like some true crime thing or something, but like sometimes I feel guilty because I don't really have hobbies outside of music. And so I think, well, would my life be more enriched if I did?
Okay. I mean, you could ask that question about a million things. If I also was an amazing chef, would my life be more enriched? If I also was a ballerina, would my life be more enriched? I mean, we could go on. And the truth is yes, our life could be more enriched. And also our life is super rich. Mm-hmm. So when we can like get into, instead of going, oh, am I missing out? Can we get into the habit of just really celebrating what is? And sometimes it's not even celebration. Sometimes it's just learning to be with what is, which is really hard to do.
Yeah. And I think people like you and I, where we're building multiple things and we have like a thing that is your thing, like your personal artist journey. And then you have this job that you do as a background singer where you're working in a team and all that stuff. I think that, then you've got these two things, they kind of balance each other out. And like, this is how it is for me, where it's like, I've got my own business and I'm doing all this stuff. And then I work here over for a church and I'm on the team and, we're working together to make the best experience for everybody. And I'm got volunteers and I'm helping them learn how to sing correctly and all that stuff. And I feel like that is fulfilling for me because I have experience where I'm like, this is my thing. And then this is where I get to be part of a team. And maybe that's why I don't need a hobby, because I don't need that like community experience of like a hobby because I'm doing another job that's kind of fulfilling that. I don't know.
Well, you have your guitar sitting there, I see behind you.
Which I don't really play. I can play it, but I can't play very fast.
That's okay. But it feels like that would be like, the hobbies get to support the mission. Mm-hmm. And like even learning how to build a funnel for my business is something that like I took hours and hours studying. I took courses. I went and tried things, failed. That was a bit of a hobby. I get off on that. Like I really love solving problems, figuring stuff out. I was always into math and science as a little girl. Like I want to experiment. And like, if I know that this experiment could be worthwhile and might also earn me some passive income in the future, that's a sexy experiment. Like I'm really into that versus doing some experiment that'll just create something nice. That's less sexy to me.
That's a good point. And I think that, I have so many things that I do in my business, right? And one of them is Women of Substance, where I'm have this platform for women. And a part of it is relating to a hobby that I had for years, which was making mixtapes. Like now I get to make these awesome playlists around specific themes and like bring together all these different styles of music and curate it. And that's fun to me. I guess to me that maybe is a hobby, but I've just happened to make it part of my business.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, all of my hobbies are going to earn me some income and or establish me in a position that would have someone that would help me to build relationship or something like that. Like for me, I don't even like art in my house that doesn't have a function. I like functional things. That's just my taste. And everyone has their own taste. And, inside of the self pillar, it's like really finally getting clear, because for many years, like my best friend would be like, no, I only like this kind of chicken. And I'd be like, okay, that's the kind of chicken we always get. And I never really thought about if I liked it because I liked all the chicken. Like I wasn't really that picky. Like this might be the worst example, but yeah, like really getting clear on what works for you, what turns you on, what your soul is calling for, just for you, because you're worth it and you should have what you want.
Right. And sometimes what you want is for others to be happy over yourself. Like I think about my mom, like she doesn't really care like what kind of chicken or even if she had to have beef and everybody got chicken, she totally wouldn't care as long as everybody that wanted chicken got chicken. And that's her, right? That makes her happy.
Well, in leadership, there's 4 quadrants to the personality. So the supporter personality is like, as long as everybody else is happy, I'm happy. And they often don't nurture themselves as much as possible. And they can survive that way for sure, but they might not experience, they might really be uncomfortable with receiving. And they might get to work a little harder on practicing flexing that muscle, right? Receiving is a muscle. It's a skill you learn. It's not just something. But then there's the controller who's like, give me the chicken and then you guys figure out what you're going to do. I'm having this, right? And then there's the promoter who's like, hey guys, there's a sale on this kind of chicken. Let's get this chicken. This one's a little cheaper and yummier and it's got more salt or what, that's the promoter. And then there's the analyzer who's like, well, how many sodium calories and how, so you have all these different personality types floating around in the world and trying to coexist. And you will find, like, when you really are clear what your personality type is, who is going to work best on your team. Like, I'm a promoting controller. I know this. And so a supporting analyzer is perfect. My assistant is a supporting analyzer. And so I'm like, I don't want to make a spreadsheet. She's like, okay, well, I will make the spreadsheet and I'll color code it and I'll, and I'm like, great. Let me know the bottom line, and where's the deal? Where do we get the discount? What's the best? I'm like looking for the deals and I'm, get me to the bottom line quick. That's my personality. So your mom sounds like a supporter.
Yes, for sure. Is there such a thing as a controlling analyzer? That's probably me.
Yeah, totally. Hold on, don't make any moves until I have analyzed every possible calculation, and let's look at all the different options and let me do some research. I'm going to call ahead and see what they have, and don't you dare move. Okay, all right.
I'm not like I have to have all information. I'm like, how can you make a decision without all information?
Yeah, because we just have trust. Like me, I'm like, oh sure, what are we doing? Yeah, well, I'll do it, but like, let me know, at least on the day, what I need to prepare. How should I dress? And then we show up and, I didn't know we were doing this. It's kind of fun to be surprised.
Whereas I'd be like, what? Like, no, I needed to know 24 hours in advance that this was happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's really good to understand yourself, and especially if you're working in a team with other people, because you just think everyone's like you.
Totally. And you don't sometimes know why you clash. Like if I'm in a room with other controllers, we might clash because we both want to run the show and we both don't know, how to work with this other person until you're like, once you're really, really clear on you, then you can go, hey, these are my boundaries. This is where I stand. What works for you? And then we can find the place.
Yeah. I think I've learned working on a team that, like, because I want all information and need it, and if I don't get it, and I'm asking for it, and if it's another personality type, they think I'm questioning them, or that I don't, agree with their decision or whatever, and they get offended by me wanting the information.
Right.
Yeah, it's good to know, right?
Totally. And then you can give them whatever they need to feel good, but you also will, know your own value. And it's like, sometimes they don't need an explanation. And also sometimes it's okay to offend somebody. We're just in this society that we have decided we want to fit into, and that we want to have everyone leave with a good feeling. And, if you can get a little bit more comfortable with, like, this might not be your bag, but this is exactly what it is. It's not going to get massaged to fit you. This is me. And if you're into it, get all the way on board and we're going to have a great time. And if you're not into it, get all the way off. And it's really great for me to learn that right away. Like, I'm like, put it all out there and be polarizing like Madonna. You're either into it or you're completely not. And then that's great because you find your tribe so much faster.
Yeah.
And once you're there, like, they're really your tribe because you've already shown them your underwear. You're already like, what I mean? Here's all the dirty laundry. If you're still into it, now I know, I know you, my people.
That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this conversation we just had about like different leadership styles or different personality styles is helpful for anyone that is in a band.
Yes.
Right? Understanding those dynamics without, letting things get out of hand and blowing up when it's just that you guys process things differently.
Yeah. And I really believe that every adult living in America, especially, but really anywhere in the world in today's society, should be doing some sort of personal development, leadership, and or therapeutic program, because none of us are equipped with the way that society raised us. None of us are equipped to problem solve in a really intelligent way. And there's so many marriages ending, relationships ending, fights in the street, all because people want to be right more than they want to actually learn what's real. Marriages, we are in a country where it's like more than 50% divorce rate. And the whole time, if you ask any divorced couple, what happened? They'll point the finger and go, he did it. It's because he wouldn't. I'm guilty of it too. Right? But like, that's what it is. Our desire to be right.
It's true. It's definitely true. Wow, this has been a great conversation. And I love it when I'm having a conversation and it goes in places that I hadn't thought of or didn't expect or whatever. That's always, I think, the most fun thing about podcasting. Is there anything that you want to make sure to get across before we finish out the interview that you wanted to tell our listeners about sacred artistry or, being an artist, a touring artist, anything like that?
Oh God, there's so much more that I would love to say, but I will just say, listen, if you are an artist, you are sacred. And sacred means worthy of worship. And when you try that word on, if it makes you the least bit uncomfortable, which it probably will, come see me and let's work on that, because the faster you actually get it into your core, into your DNA, into your knowingness that you are worthy of abundance, of time, of money, of joy, we get to dissolve the starving artist narrative together. None of us were meant to be starving. And still, my number one complaint from every artist that comes into my ether is a scarcity money issue. It's like, well, if I had enough money, I would be doing my dream. I'd be being and living my dream. And so let's get you out of the scarcity and into the abundance that is your birthright. And it starts with really knowing that you are already sacred. You're just as important as Obama, as Oprah, as Beyonce. I mean, they all wake up the same way every morning like us. That's really it. I will give you a link that you could put in the show notes and they can reach out to me. I would just love to share everything I got. Like, my whole mission is just uplifting artists. So let me know if you want to come.
I love it. And I just love how you so confidently say that, like, we all deserve worship. Like,
yeah,
most people are not gutsy enough to say that.
We do. We really do. And yes, it made me uncomfortable at the beginning too. But when I got that breakthrough and found my way to the other side of that, and it was like, oh, wait, no, actually, like, I am super powerful, very impactful. I make waves. When I walk into a room, if I'm being my full self and not shrinking into a corner because I'm feeling whatever kind of insecurity or any kind of way, I am magic and I have a lot to offer. And even if I hadn't had all the years of experience I've had, I still am magic and have a lot to offer. And once I really got that, I could make somebody laugh. I could make somebody's day. I could say something to somebody that will be impactful for the rest of their life. I could make memories, or I can help somebody not remember something that was horrible for people, right? Like, I am valuable, and the value shows up in different ways as long as we know that there's value here.
I love it. I love that. And I feel like, I mean, for me, I feel like I've come into way more of my personal power this year. And some of it has to do with turning 50. And just
welcome.
Like, yes. What the hell? I'm going for it. You know what I mean?
You're 50? How dare you look 30? How dare you?
I don't think so, but
I do. I'm blown away. Well done.
Thank you. But somehow it was empowering to me to just hit that number and be like, somehow now, like, I have permission to do whatever I want. I don't know why I didn't feel like I had that before. I had some of it, but not as much as I have now. So, I mean, it is so freeing. So I hope you guys can all, those of you that are listening or watching, experience that increase in personal power, because not only does it free you up to do so many more things that you want to do and have so much more of an impact, but it is so like, it's intoxicating. It's like magnetic. People want to be in your world because they see that you have this much confidence.
It's true.
It's true. It's so true. So if they want to, stay more connected with you on social media, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
Honey Larochelle on Instagram. It's at Honey Larochelle. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/Honey Larochelle Music. And if you can just remember my name, honeylarochelle.com. And you can always also just send me a message at honeylarochelle@gmail.com. If you can remember my name, I'm very easy to find.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking some time out before your sound check while you're on tour in order to have this conversation. I'm so glad we made it happen.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. What a treat to get this time with you, Bree.
Thanks for listening to the Profitable Musician Show. I would love to know your takeaways and aha moments from this episode. Leave me a comment over at profitablemusician.com so I can bring you more of the information, interviews, and resources that you love. Thanks to Rondi Fay, one of my Academy members, for providing the music for our podcast. You can check her out at rondifay.com. That's RANDIFAY.com. Just remember, knowledge is power, but without implementation, it is useless. And inspiration without action is merely entertainment. But I know you're not just a dreamer, you are a doer. And I promise I'll be here every week to support you and remind you that you can be a profitable musician.